What's up, car guys and car gals, all things automotive, Andrew here, and this is a review of the 2007 Ford Mustang GT. Let's do a quick walk around of the exterior of the 2007 Mustang GT. It is finished off in the Vista Blue Metallic factory color. It has American Muscle's bullet style deep dish wheels. They measure 18 by 8.5 in the front, 18 by 9 in the rear. It's running a 235 front tire and a 255 rear tire. Of course, it's got the chrome GT badge. It also has the factory optioned side scoops with honeycomb inserts. This particular Mustang has the MMD quarter window louvers, which adds to that retro-esque styling. Coming around to the rear of the Mustang, of course it's got the GT spoiler wing. Also, because it's a V8, it's got the dual exhaust. This one in fact has the Ford Racing Performance Parts exhaust, which sounds amazing. Coming to look at the center cap. Another retro-esque styling part. This would be where you would have your fuel door for the 70s Mustangs. This is just cosmetic only, but it looks pretty nice. Also very retro type throwback styling of the rear with those brake lights. Before we jump to the interior, I want to show you what's under the hood. The 2007 Mustang GT comes stock with a 4.6 liter single overhead cam V8, 3 valves per cylinder, totaling 24 valves. This Mustang is completely stock under the hood. It makes 300 horsepower at 5,750 RPM and 320 pound-feet of torque at 4,500 RPM. For those that are interested, the stock 2007 Mustang dynos at around 277 rear wheel horsepower and about 296 pound-feet of torque to the rear wheels. Now that I've given you an exterior walk around, let's jump into the interior. Doors are nice and heavy, feel very solid when opening. Just take a quick look around the interior, and I'll give you my impressions of it as soon as I hop in. So hopping in the 2007 Ford Mustang GT, doors, as mentioned before, nice and heavy, very solid feel when closing. Door handles feel very high quality, very well made. That satin color really adds contrast to the interior. I don't know if you heard that noise, but what that was is actually the window drops a ½ an inch when you open the door, and it rolls back up that ½ an inch when you close the door, so it'll clear that sloping roof line. Lock, unlock. 2 automatic window buttons, and you have one on the passenger side as well. First thing I notice is when I sit down in these seats, the seat feel, it's pretty average. They're pretty decent as far as comfortability goes. These would be more likely to be found in something such as like a family sedan or something like that. They don't really necessarily, in my opinion, belong in a muscle car because lack of bolstering. They're pretty decent, but they don't really hug me too much. I mean, I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm only about 180 pounds, so maybe a thicker guy might get more use out of the bolstering. Thigh bolstering is decent again. Leather, however, could use a little bit of improvement as there is cracking and fading. This only has 27,000 miles on this car, so the longevity of the leather is leaves more to be desired. Headrest in this car, pretty comfortable to say the least. So these seats are not bad. I'd probably give them about a 7 out of 10. Car is equipped with dual power seats that are 2-way adjustable. It also has a lumbar feature to add to comfortability. So, headroom in this car. Well, not for you taller guys. Me, myself, I'm over 6 feet tall. And yes, I'm wearing a hat right now, by the way, and I took off my jacket, if you haven't noticed. Headroom in this car. One of the things you sacrifice, pretty much because of the sloping roofline. I got about, I would say probably like no more than a ½ an inch of headroom, so that's one of the prices you pay if you want a muscle car. Next thing I noticed when hopping in the Mustang is this large retro style steering wheel. I think that looks absolutely excellent. Great throwback to the 60s Mustangs. Along with the retro style wheel, retro style gauges. Excellent job here, very creative, way to go Ford. Nicely included on the dash is a screen that tells you all types of information, such as your trip meter, how many miles to empty, your average miles per gallon, and also how many gallons you've used. You could time a trip if you'd like, and it tells you your average miles per hour as well. So one of the cool features about the dash of the 2007 Mustang GT is that it's equipped with the Ford's My Color feature. You could change the dash color to pretty much any color you want. A little bit of display here. And there you have it. Headlight switch is located in a panel to the left of the dash. Low beams, high beams, and to activate the fog lights, you need to pull the dial straight out towards you and off. This car is equipped with the GT500 style pedal package, which I think dresses up the interior very nicely. Coming across the dash, you'll notice the retro style AC vents. Dash also has a carbon fiber style overlay, although not real carbon fiber. Accents the dash very nicely along with the retro vents. Coming to the center stack, we have the Shaker 500 stereo system in this car. Very good sound quality, in my opinion. Shaker 1000 is also available for this car. Only difference is the Shaker 1000 in the name. It's a 1000 watt stereo system, and also features the subwoofer for the trunk that adds a lot more bass. Center stack, in my opinion, it needs work. It lacks a lot, in my opinion. Very cheap feeling knobs, very, very cheap feeling. This is just Ford parts bin slapped pretty much into this Mustang. Not very good resistance to the knobs, to the volume knob, I should say. Buttons, functional, but very, very plasticky and cheap feeling. Like I said, this leaves a lot to be desired, but in this type of a car, it's a performance car, so not too many people are going to be complaining too much of the lack of upscale center stack. Shifter in this car is good. Throws are on the longer side, and there's a considerably tight amount of space in between the gears, so it's pretty confidence inspiring in the fact that you'll always find the gear that you want to be in, so you'll never miss third and go into fifth by accident. The only thing I can critique this on is that it's kind of spongy when it's actually in gear, so meaning you could wiggle it left and right while it's actually in the gear. But other than that, I think it's a really well done stock shifter. Cup holders in this car, one large, one small. The larger one is pretty good. You could fit probably a 20 or more ounce drink in there. This one more for a coffee cup. Only downside I can see is it's very, very hard and and cheap plastic here, but it's pretty sturdy and solid. Wouldn't worry about my drinks going anywhere. Moving along to the center armrest. It's on the firmer feeling side. Wouldn't want to rest my arm on here for a longer road trip. It appears as if it's a softer material, but when you have to really put hard pressure on it to even like get this thing to even, you know, give in a little bit. Very wiggly though, and again, cheap feeling. Padding on the doors, however, is a little bit softer than the center armrest, but wouldn't want to rest my arm on there for extended periods of time. Storage space in this car on the whole is rather skimpy. There's very thin map pockets in the door that can maybe hold a few napkins and such. Coming along to the glove box, again, a little bit skimpy on the room as well. There's enough room to maybe hold your manual, your registration, a couple other documents, and a toy car. Storage space in the center armrest is rather plentiful. You could fit an entire box of tissues or a few sunglass cases in here with extra room to spare. The Mustangs model year 2007 and up are equipped with an auxiliary jack, and there's also a power outlet in here as well. There's a spot to hold coins, and there's a CD rack equipped to the armrest cover. Okay, before I show you the trunk space, I just want to make the point that there's no trunk release located inside the car. The only trunk release is on the remote. So, trunk space in this car. It's a pretty healthy amount of trunk space, actually. You could get away with fitting about 2 to 3 full-size suitcases, maybe about 2 bags of golf clubs as well. And yeah, it's pretty good size for a muscle car, I must say. One more thing I want to add about the trunk is that had this car been equipped with the Shaker 1000 stereo system, you would lose nearly the entire passenger side portion of the trunk to a subwoofer. Something I want to add is that the rear seats do fold down to increase trunk capacity. Backseat space in this car is pretty crammed, to say the least. Another one of the prices you pay for having a 2-door muscle car such as this. Rear seats are bucket style, so they're kind of sunken in to add for a little bit more headroom. I'm over 6 feet tall, and I have barely, I mean barely, any headroom in this back seat. I have maybe a centimeter's worth of room before my head touches. So if I hit a bump, I'm going to be in some serious trouble. And for those of you that are under 6 feet tall, it's not much more comfortable back here. You will maybe have minimal, I mean minimal headroom at best. So this is the kind of spot you'd maybe want to put kids or throw some people in a pinch. So being over 6 feet tall, sitting behind a driver of average height, my knees actually touch the back of the seat, and if someone was actually taller than average height or even a driver over 6 foot, I would actually have to straddle the seat in order to make room for myself. Okay, so now the part everybody's been waiting for. Time to take it for a spin. So for this car, put your foot on the clutch, twist the key, and hear it roar to life. Okay, so we are headed out in the 2007 Ford Mustang GT. So some of the things I begin to notice as I take off in the Mustang is that the clutch feels pretty moderately heavy, I would say. I wouldn't say it's something super heavy like a drag car clutch or anything like that. It's nothing to like, you know, the feel of like a stage 6 ridiculously heavy clutch, but it's not something that's super light like a Civic Si clutch. It's somewhere in between. It's a lot stiffer than you would think, but it's pretty easy to control, I would say. I like, me personally, a good amount of clutch feel. I don't like it super light because then your leg is a lot more dependent on a smooth takeoff. Okay, so another thing I want to say about the clutch is that it's pretty tricky to get used to. So I'm used to it by now because it's my car, but when I was first starting to learn how to use this clutch, I was stalling it, I was bogging it, and a lot of people are like that because this clutch, it grabs very high off the floor, so it's very tricky to get used to. And it's pretty weighty as well, so I think that also adds to making it tricky to get used to and have like a smooth takeoff. Another thing I like about this car is that it's got a hill holding clutch. I was just on a hill and I didn't even roll back even slightly, which is nice. As long as you know to let the clutch out properly, the hill holding clutch definitely comes in handy. Stock brakes in this car are excellent. The only little thing I can complain about is that there's a tiny bit of dead travel when you depress the brake, but when it bites, this thing will stop on a dime. So visibility in this car, how's the visibility? Well, it's pretty good for a muscle car, I have to say. The visibility out the front windshield is pretty good compared to a lot of the other muscle cars on the road. I would say the visibility is a lot better than something like the Camaro. But it's also not as good as, like, you know, driving like an entirely huge bubble like some of the sedans do, like where the visibility is incredible. It's not anything terrible. It's not like I'm struggling to see out of it, but it's not like, you know, like being surrounded in like a glass bubble either. The visibility out the rear, however, frankly, it's terrible, and I attribute that to having louvers on the windows. So seeing out the quarter windows is pretty much non-existent. Most people opt for quarter window louvers. If they were open, I could tell you the visibility is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. The visibility out the side windows is pretty good as well. Again, I'm not struggling to see anything, so that's always good. The pillars, they don't really get in the way because they're pretty small. So when comparing it to something with like thicker pillars, this thing has good visibility all the way around. Visibility at the rear is it's pretty decent as well. It's not anything like a chop top where you would have absolutely no visibility, but it's not, again, like the feeling of being in a bubble like a sedan where it's just surrounded by glass. It's not that either. So how does the Mustang handle the road? Well, the suspension is pretty stiff. And what I mean by that is you pretty much do feel everything you run over, and I think that could be attributed to the fact that the front is on coilovers, and these 19-inch wheels by American Muscle, they add to the stiffness of the ride as well. It doesn't make the ride uncomfortable, but it certainly is not like to the luxury car levels of soaking up bumps and things like that. It's not, you know, super comfortable, but it's not jarring either that you're really feeling pain to run over every single bump. Okay, so how does this car handle corners? Well, let's find out. Coming up to a pretty tight corner here, I'm going to push it through to see how this thing does. It feels pretty good around corners. Here we go again, another tight corner. There definitely is a good amount of body roll, I will say that. This is a heavier car. It's not, you know, as heavy as a lot of the other muscle cars, like to say the Challenger. That thing is nearly 4,000 pounds. This is only 3,350 pounds. So the body roll, you definitely do feel it, but it's pretty snug in the corners. It's not like I'm slipping off the road or anything like that. It's not anywhere to that extent. It also doesn't feel like it's completely on rails either. I'm sure I would get taken by a car that definitely does handle. This is more, it's a muscle car, so it's more for the straight line aspect, but it does handle corners pretty nicely. It's pretty flat around corners as well, I should say. I took that one pretty hard and it feels definitely pretty flat. So how does the shifter feel? Well, again, it does feel pretty notchy when driving it. It does feel, however, a little bit spongy when it's in the gears, and what I mean by that is it can be wiggled left and right while it's in the gate of a gear. It's not very tight feeling, and it's not very confidence inspiring either when there's a lot of play in the shifter when it's in the gate. Ford definitely cleared that up, however, though, with the 6-speed transmission now found in the 5.0 Mustangs. But it's not like a feeling of where, you know, you have something like broken bushings or anything in there. It's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. It's well made, in my opinion, I should say. So how quiet is it in here? Well, that's always a factor you want to think about. This car does have a performance exhaust on it, so there is a certain amount of drone in the cabin. It really exists between like 2,000 and 2,500 RPM, and then it starts to sound like that typical muscle car sound when you start getting on it and accelerating. So I certainly wouldn't want to cruise at around 2,000 RPM all day. Because of the drone. It's not anything like gonna leave your ears ringing, but it's certainly like, it's not a pleasant noise. It's more of like a buzzing, but underneath 2,000 RPM, it's not bad at all. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you are saying, how sacrilege of him to say he wants it quiet in his car. No, that's not what I said. I said, how's the sound deadening in this car? Well, it's pretty good, but you always want to hear this. Yes, that glorious V8 muscle sound. And let me tell you, it sounds amazing. This Ford racing exhaust is great. I love it so much. I would ride with the windows down all day if weather conditions permitted. You don't even need stereo or anything. This car sounds great. Okay, so I'm turning onto this road. It's pretty empty, so I'm gonna do just a little bit of a pull here so you can hear that exhaust. Oh man, does that sound good? Yes, and that's me shifting it lightly. Alright, so I'm approaching a straightaway, and I'm lucky enough to have nobody else on the road. So, what do you say we give this thing the beans? Woo! Woo! Alright. Alright. So, this thing's pretty quick. A lot of people are going to critique it and say it's only got 300 horsepower and whatever, but in a car this light, 300 horsepower, it is excellent. This thing will certainly put you back in your seat. It's nothing that's going to blow you away completely, but this thing is quick. 0 to 60 times are boasted at about 4.9 seconds, which is pretty good in my opinion. Anything under 5 seconds is fast. And at a car in this price range, it's a lot of fun. I can't help but do it again. Oh man, that's never gonna get old. Certainly a fun car, I'll tell you that much. Always be careful though, because you can get into a good amount of trouble. This may not be the fastest thing in the world, but you certainly can get into trouble with this thing, let me tell you. Okay, now let's see what this thing can do from a dig. I have traction control off, and I'm going to launch it from about 2,000 RPM. Get some tire churn. And man, let me tell you, this thing pulls strong. It pulls strong. For 300 horsepower, this thing pulls strong. I know, say it again, right? Alright, so another empty road. Let's get into it again. Alright, so the one thing you notice is these gears. So from the factory, it comes with 331 gears. So those are very long gears. So first gear, I believe, revs all the way out to like 45 miles an hour. It's pretty crazy. So definitely with a taller set of gears, this car will pull a lot more. So you're really just revving this thing out when you're accelerating. So it's just like you're sitting there waiting to shift, and then it's time to shift. You know what I'm saying? When you compare to something like 410s, like you're shifting every 20 miles an hour with 410s. These gears are a lot longer. These things are made for boost, I would say. Definitely not a naturally aspirated gear ratio. It was, however, an option to get 355 gears from the factory. This one, the previous owner opted to get 331 gears. So fuel consumption, well, don't expect to get the best MPG in the world. This is a V8, so it comes with its territory. You're gonna get pretty crappy gas mileage, and this one especially gets horrific gas mileage if you drive it even the slightest bit hard. Going easy in the city, however, expect to get about 14 miles to the gallon and about 19 on the highway. But if you're doing mixed driving, it's gonna suffer a little bit more. And if you get on it as much as I do, you know, expecting that 11 to 12 mile per gallon number. Now this car is set by the factory to run on 87 octane. So this car has been designed to run on regular. So it would need a tune to run on anything higher, something like 93 or anything, you know, even higher than that. So to sum it all up, what do I think about the 2007 Ford Mustang GT? Well, I love it. That's why this car is mine, and that's why I daily drive it. It's a great car to be had for the sub $20,000 range. You certainly can have a ton of fun with it. It's a V8, you get that great sound. It may not be the most practical car in the world for things such as miles per gallon, and you know, driving in bad weather. You know, it is rear wheel drive, so it likes to kick out the tires a lot. Even though it's not the most practical car in the world, I certainly think it's so super fun. It's one of the best cars to be had for under 20,000, and you don't even care about, you know, how bad the interior is or anything like that. This is a driver's car. You know, this is a fun driver's car. It really connects you to that driving experience. It's not something you drive because you have to. It's something you drive because you want to, and because you want to have a lot of fun doing it. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is the ultimate car to get for under $20,000, or this is like the best Mustang to have, because it's certainly not. You know, I pointed out a lot of flaws. I think I was very fair with this review, but I could certainly say, in my opinion, this is easily a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Absolutely, as far as fun goes, and as far as how much likability is from the driving aspect. You know, like I said, it may not have the best interior quality or the best storage space, and it's not, you know, the most practical car in the world, but if you're looking for a fun car sub $20,000, there's not many super fun cars out there that have this kind of power, that do 0 to 60 in less than 5 seconds, that sound like this either. But this is definitely up there. It looks great. It still turns heads, even though it's an 8-year-old car at this point, you know? It looks great. It's, again, I can't keep saying how fun this car is to drive, because the thought of everything else really goes out the window when you really see how much this is a driver's car. So yes, in conclusion, I definitely say, because I'm not biased, because this is my car, I can knock it in certain areas, and like I said, I think I was very fair with this review, but this is certainly one of the most fun cars I've driven that cost less than 20,000 bucks. And even the more higher mileage ones you can get for sub 15,000. So it really is a great bargain for what you're getting. Even though it might not be the most practical car, like I said, it is a really great car, and I would totally recommend it. You could have endless amounts of fun, and still, you know, you're not into it for like Ferrari amounts of money. You know, you can still have a great amount of fun. It gets good looks, and on top of it all, it's a Mustang, and it's, my opinion, it's one of the best looking Mustangs that Ford ever put out. This retro design is great. It turns heads even though it's 8 years old. People still think it's brand new, you know. People that are non-car people, it's crazy. You know, it's a great car, and I would totally recommend it. That does it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments section below what you think about the 2007 Ford Mustang GT. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.